The drums rolled like thunder through the night air, each beat vibrating against Illyria's chest as though her heart itself were being commanded. Torches flared around the sacred circle, their smoke curling into the star-pierced sky. The people of the valley gathered shoulder to shoulder, faces half lit in gold, half lost in shadow, their breaths forming a single restless wind. Illyria's aunt, Lady Serena, gripped her arm hard enough to bruise. "Stand straight. Smile. Tonight your fate is sealed. Do not shame our name." Illyria forced her chin high, though her stomach twisted. A veil of silver gossamer floated from her hair to the ground, meant to make her appear angelic, desirable. But the garment felt more like a shroud. At the far side of the circle, the council of elders stood in rigid silence. Their eyes were cold, measuring, ancient. Tonight, she would be chosen. Or rather, claimed. A murmur rose from the crowd as Lord Vaynar stepped forward. His armor gleamed. His cloak swayed like spilled blood. A jagged scar slashed across his cheek, deepening the cruel curve of his smile. He was twice her age and thrice her arrogance, yet none dared oppose his bid. "Illyria of Serena's line," he declared, voice like a blade scraping stone. "Before the council and before the gods, I claim you as mate." Applause scattered through the crowd, a few cheers loud and eager. Serena's grip on Illyria tightened. "Kneel. Accept him." Her knees locked. She stared at Vaynar, her throat dry. She imagined his hands on her, his mark burning her skin, his laugh in her ear while she bore his air. The thought strangled her breath. Then, across the circle, she saw him. A man slouched in the shadows by a pillar, wrapped in rags that might once have been clothes. His hair tangled across his brow, his beard rough, his feet bare. Laughter and spittle from drunk villagers had left stains across his sleeves. A beggar unwanted, unnoticed, but his eyes, storm-gray, unyielding, caught hers through the firelight. They did not flinch, did not sneer, did not hunger. They only watched. Her heart lurched. Vaynar extended a hand. Serena whispered urgently. The elders frowned. The circle closed tighter. Illyria moved. Her veil tore free as she slipped from her aunt's grip. The crowd gasped. She pushed through bodies, stumbled across the dirt, until the beggar rose before her. The smell of smoke and sweat clung to him, yet beneath it something wild stirred, like the scent of pine forests after rain. His lips parted, confused, but Illyria didn't let herself think. She seized his face with trembling hands and kissed him. The world shattered. Gasps exploded all around. A woman shrieked. A man cursed. The drums faltered. For one suspended heartbeat, the circle was silent except for the raw press of her mouth against his. His breath caught, warm and startled against her skin. Then chaos erupted. "Blasphemy!" an elder roared. "She has bound herself to filth," cried another. Serena's wail tore across the night. "Illyria, what have you done?" Vaynar's rage thundered louder than the drums. He shoved through the crowd, face crimson, hand on his sword. "You dare shame me? You dare spit on my claim?" Guards surged forward, grabbing the beggar by his arms, wrenching him away from her. He did not fight. He let them chain him, his expression unreadable. Only his eyes remained fixed on her, calm, unwavering, as though she had tethered herself to something she could not yet see. The elders' voices collided in fury, until one slammed a staff against the ground. Sparks scattered. By the ancient law, the girl has chosen. Her kiss binds the bond. The beggar is her mate. Outrage swelled like a storm. Villagers shouted. Some jeered. Others whispered with pity. Serena collapsed against another woman's arms, whispering broken prayers. Vaynar cursed the heavens and vowed vengeance. Illyria's knees weakened. What had she done? What madness had driven her lips to that man? Yet beneath the roar of condemnation, beneath the heat of shame, a thread of certainty coiled in her chest. His eyes had steadied her in the moment she was drowning. The guards dragged him forward, chains clattering. "Bring him to the council," an elder commanded. The beggar did not bow, did not plead. He stood tall despite the shackles, shoulders straight, gaze unyielding. Illyria felt the crowd's hatred closing around her like a net, but his silence was a strange shield. The council pronounced its judgment. So it is bound. The girl belongs to the beggar. Their lives are one. No hand may break what the gods have sealed. The torches sputtered as if the night itself recoiled. Elira shivered beneath the stares of her people, but she could not look away from him. He did not smile, did not scowl. Only his eyes spoke, eyes that seemed far older than his rags. As the guards pulled him away, chains biting into his wrists, Elira knew her reckless defiance had not freed her. It had tethered her to a stranger the world despised. And yet, a strange thought whispered through her chest like an ember catching fire. Better a stranger with steady eyes than a monster with a crown. The drums began again, heavy, condemning, as if beating out her sentence. The crowd dispersed in mutters and stares. Serena would not meet her gaze. Vaynar spat into the dust at her feet and stalked away. Elira stood alone in the fading circle of torchlight, veil torn, lips still burning with the heat of her choice. Somewhere in the dark, the beggar's storm-gray eyes lingered on her a moment longer before the chains dragged him out of sight. The night was not yet finished with her. The hut smelled of damp straw and smoke, its walls leaning, as though one more storm would topple them. Elira stood at the threshold, unwilling to step inside. This was her new life, banishment in all but name, bound to a beggar no one respected. Behind her, villagers lingered to whisper and snicker, throwing stones at the door before drifting away. By morning, the whole valley would know she had condemned herself to disgrace. The man who was now her mate crouched by the hearth, coaxing a thin flame from broken twigs. He moved without a sound, as if the air itself parted for him. The rags he wore hung loose over muscles, far too strong for hunger to have left untouched. When he glanced up, firelight caught the storm gray of his eyes. "You should eat," he said, voice rough but steady. He held out a wooden bowl of broth that smelled faintly of herbs. She flinched, pride pricking sharper than hunger. "I didn't ask for this." A faint smile ghosted his mouth. "Neither did I." Her cheeks burned, though from anger or shame she could not tell. She snatched the bowl, sipped once, then set it aside. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of wood and the distant howls that rolled from the forest's edge. At length she asked, "Why didn't you stop me?" His gaze lingered on the fire. "Because no one ever chooses the unwanted. And you did." Her breath caught, startled by the weight of his answer. She wanted to tell him it hadn't been a choice, only desperation, but the words stuck. Instead, she stared at his hands, scarred, calloused, strong enough to split wood with a single stroke. Beggar's hands should have trembled with weakness. His did not. Days blurred into uneasy rhythm. He chopped wood, fetched water, fixed the leaking roof. She swept the floor, mended the torn cloth. They spoke little, yet each silence seemed louder than words. Sometimes, when the villagers shouted insults from outside, he stood in the doorway until they slunk away. She had expected him to cower. Instead, he held himself with a quiet, dangerous dignity. One evening, as twilight bled into night, Elira caught him washing his arms in the basin. The water turned red, but not from dirt. Thin cuts marred his skin, too clean to be accidents. She gasped before she could stop herself. "You're hurt," she said. His jaw tightened. "It will pass." She stepped closer despite herself. "How?" His eyes lifted, sharp as steel. For a heartbeat, she thought he would strike her with that look alone. Then his shoulders eased, and he turned away. "Not everything wants to be known." The words unsettled her more than any confession might have. That night, she woke to growls scratching the air outside. At first she thought it the usual wolves, but the sound was wrong, harsher, deeper, carrying a stench of blood. Shadows shifted at the window, eyes burning red in the dark. "Elira," he whispered, already rising, movements quick and certain. "Stay behind me." The door crashed open. 3 wolves, larger than any natural beast, lunged inside. Their fur was matted with filth. Their teeth gleamed with hunger. Elira froze, heart thundering. The beggar did not. He moved like lightning, seizing one beast by the throat, hurling it across the room. Another leapt. He met it mid-air, slammed it to the ground, and broke its neck with a single twist. His body was a storm unleashed, every strike precise, brutal, unstoppable. In the chaos, Alira glimpsed his eyes, not gray, but gold, blazing with a light older than fire. Her breath locked in her chest. The wolves faltered as if recognizing something greater than themselves, but it was too late. Within moments, silence fell, broken only by Alira's ragged breathing. The beasts lay dead at his feet. He stood over them, chest heaving, blood dripping from his knuckles. The gold in his gaze dimmed, returning to storm gray. When he turned to her, his expression was unreadable. She pressed back against the wall. What are you?" He wiped his hands on a rag, voice low and unshaken. "Alive. For now." "That wasn't human." Her voice cracked. "No beggar fights like that." He said nothing, only met her eyes with that steady, unbearable calm, as though daring her to ask again. Fear and something sharper coiled in her stomach. She remembered the heat of his body shielding hers, the feral grace of his movements, the fire in his gaze. He frightened her, yet some part of her, traitorous and unyielding, could not look away. She whispered, "You're not who you pretend to be." Still, he gave her no answer. The silence between them was heavier than truth, and far more dangerous. Outside, the forest howled again, as if promising that this night was only the beginning. Dawn crept pale over the valley, washing the hut in a thin, reluctant light. Alira sat awake on her pallet, knees drawn to her chest, the memory of gold burning behind her eyelids. She had seen him as no one else had. Not a beggar, not a broken man, but something greater, something dangerous. He moved quietly through the room, binding the shallow cuts on his arms as though they meant nothing. He did not look at her, yet she felt the weight of his silence pressing against her ribs. Rumors began to swirl through the village within days. Hunters whispered of a wolf king lost years ago, betrayed by his council, vanished into the shadows. Others muttered that Alira's beggar mate was cursed, half-man, half-beast, drawing evil upon their lands. Wherever she walked, stares burned her skin, some pitying, most filled with scorn. But when she returned to the hut each evening, he was there, repairing the roof, splitting logs, guarding the threshold with a stillness that unnerved her more than absence would have. At last, she could not bear the silence any longer. She waited until the fire's embers glowed low and whispered, "I know you're hiding. Tell me what you are." He did not lift his gaze. His hand turned the wood in the flame with deliberate care, as though every motion carried centuries. "Truth is heavier than chains. You wouldn't carry it." Her pulse stumbled. "You think me weak." No, his eyes met hers, storm gray again but shadowed by something vast. "I think you deserve to choose your own life, before it crushes you." The words unsettled her, yet drew her closer. She knelt by the fire, daring to reach for his wrist. His skin was warm, steady, the pulse beneath it strong. "I already chose," she said softly. His hand tightened once, almost painfully, before he pulled away. "Not knowing what I am. That is no choice." In the days that followed, fragments of the truth reached her, through whispers not meant for her ears. Old women spoke of Kaelin, the Alpha King betrayed and vanished. Children played games where they pretended to be the lost ruler returning to punish traitors. When she heard the name, something in her heart stilled. Kaelin. The syllables felt too sharp, too familiar. One evening, when the sky burned with sunset, she pressed him again. "Is it you? Are you Kaelin?" His jaw hardened, eyes flashing like steel struck by light. For a long moment, she thought he would deny it. Then he said, voice low and bitter, "A king without a crown is only a man in rags." The truth struck her like cold water. She staggered back, breath trembling. He had been there all along, hidden in plain sight, while she had kissed him in defiance, without knowing the storm she tethered herself to. Yet fear was not all that stirred within her. It was awe too, and something dangerously close to longing. Her aunt arrived the next day, cloak trailing dust, eyes sharp with fury. Serena pulled her aside, whispering so fiercely that spittle flecked her lips. "You think you are clever, child? You've bound yourself to ruin. The council plots even now. End this, or you will both be destroyed." Alira's defiance cracked under the weight of dread, but only for a moment. She looked back at the man inside the hut, repairing a chair with quiet patience, and shook her head. I won't betray him. Serena's face blanched with outrage. Then you'll watch him hang. That night, Illyria sat close to the fire while he sharpened a blade, each stroke whispering against the whetstone. The silence between them pulsed with unsaid words. At last, he looked up, and the fire painted his face in harsh relief. If I claim you now, he said, voice rough with restraint, there will be no return. You will carry my mark. You will share my enemies. My death will be your death. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The space between them crackled, charged with heat she could not name. For one suspended moment, his face drew close, their breaths mingling. Her lips parted, his eyes softened, gold flickering faintly beneath the gray. Then he turned away, blade snapping back into its sheath. Not yet. The rejection burned sharper than fire, but beneath it pulsed a promise, something inevitable waiting. The promise shattered with the clash of steel. The door burst open, soldiers pouring in, Vaynar at their head, eyes wild with triumph. Chains of silver gleamed in their hands. So the beggar hides a crown, he sneered. Thank you, girl, for leading us to him. Kaelin rose, fury flashing gold in his eyes, but silver chains bit into his arms before he could strike. He fought like a storm against them, yet the metal seared his skin, smoke rising where it touched. Illyria screamed, trying to pull him free, but rough hands dragged her back. Vaynar's laughter split the air. Behold your king, he mocked, pressing Kaelin's head into the dirt. A wolf in chains. Tomorrow, he dies before the people. Kaelin's gaze found hers even as soldiers forced him down. Storm gray, defiant, unbroken. Illyria's heart clenched with terror and fury, knowing the truth too late. The man she had kissed to escape a monster had been a king all along, and now the monster held him captive. The square brimmed with bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder, the morning sun glinting off blades and helmets. Chains rattled like cruel music as Kaelin was dragged to the platform. His shoulders bore welts where silver had burned him, yet he walked upright, gaze unbowed. The villagers who once mocked him now stared in awe and terror, whispering the name they had not dared to speak aloud for years. Alpha King. Illyria stood at the edge of the crowd, her hands trembling beneath her cloak. Every heartbeat hammered with the weight of choice. She had bound herself to him in desperation, discovered his truth by accident, and now the world would watch him die for both. Lord Vaynar stepped forward, savoring every breath of the spectacle. His scar caught the light like a brand of triumph. People of the valley. Vaynar shouted, voice booming across the square. Behold the pretender who crawled among us as a beggar, who dared deceive the council and corrupt an innocent girl. Today his blood will cleanse our shame. A roar of approval surged from the soldiers, though the villagers' voices wavered with unease. Illyria's throat closed as the executioner raised the blade, sunlight flashing along its edge. No, the word tore from her before she knew she had spoken. Her cloak fell from her shoulders as she stumbled into the circle, face pale, eyes burning. He is no pretender. He is my mate. By law and bond, you cannot touch him. Gasps spread like fire through dry grass. Vaynar's face twisted in fury. You dare defy the council? Illyria moved to Kaelin's side, the chains clinking as she knelt. Her hand shook as she lifted his head and pressed her lips to his, sealing the choice she had made once in rebellion, but now in devotion. Heat blazed through her veins, wild and ancient. Kaelin's body shuddered. The chains cracked, silver splintering as though unable to contain him. His eyes flared gold, brighter than flame, and a growl thundered from deep in his chest. He rose, towering, every inch the king he had been born to be. The square trembled beneath the roar of wolves as pack instinct surged. Even the fiercest soldiers flinched, lowering their weapons. Vaynar drew his sword, rage twisting into desperation. You think yourself king still? You are nothing. He lunged, steel slicing the air. Kaelin met him head-on. The clash rang like thunder, sparks spitting from every strike. Strength born of fury and bond coursed through him, each blow driving Vaynar back. Dust swirled, villagers shrieking as the duel carved a storm through the square. Finally, Kaelin's blade tore Vaynar's from his grip. With one brutal strike, He sent the man sprawling into the dust, broken and gasping. But before silence could settle, the shadows stirred. From the edges of the forest poured the twisted beasts Alira had seen before, red-eyed and snarling. The shadow pack come in full force. Panic erupted as villagers scattered, their screams blending with the howls of the enemy. Kalen stood unflinching, eyes blazing, but this time he was not alone. Alira seized a fallen spear, her hands trembling yet unyielding. She moved to his side, her back against his, breath quick but steady. "Stay close," he growled, and she answered, "Always." They fought as one. He was fury and fire, claws and steel, each strike felling a beast with terrifying grace. She was swift and desperate, the spear an extension of her will, her courage feeding his strength. Where his defense faltered, she struck. Where her fear wavered, his presence steadied. The bond between them pulsed like a living flame, driving back the tide. When the last beast fell, silence swept the square. Blood stained the stones, smoke curled into the sky. But the people still stood, watching with wide, reverent eyes. Slowly, as though drawn by instinct deeper than fear, one by one they bent their knees. The council lowered their heads. The valley bowed to its king returned. Kalen, chest heaving, turned to Alira. For once, the steel in his gaze softened. His voice, hoarse yet unshaken, trembled with something far more fragile than command. "You chose me when I was nothing. Will you still choose me now?" Her throat tightened, tears burning hot, but her answer was steady. She reached for him, pulling him close, her lips meeting his not with defiance, but with certainty. The bond sealed, fierce and undeniable, carrying through the air like a vow older than time. The crowd erupted, not with outrage, but with a howl of allegiance. Wolves lifted their heads to the sky, voices weaving together in a song of surrender to their alpha. Alira pressed her cheek to Kalen's chest, listening to the steady thunder of his heart. "You were never a beggar to me," she whispered, his arms wrapped around her, firm and unyielding, as though the world itself could break, and he would not let her fall. Above them, the sun broke fully through the clouds, gilding the blood-stained square in light. And for the first time, Alira felt not trapped, not bound, but free. Thank you so much for listening to this tale of love, defiance, and destiny. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to follow for more stories.